sending it to me. Oh my goodness, hang on. Put my little disc back in. There we go. Oh, fell out again. Okay. There we go.
Okay.
All right.
Trying to figure out the distance.
Yeah, the closer the better, definitely.
Do we have another headphone set too?
Okay. I'm gonna like stare at myself. Okay. Now what? So we are streaming.
Yeah, it's streaming, right? Yeah. Say start streaming. I guess.
Yep. And then should I connect it to YouTube or is it?
No, I plugged in if you go to the streaming tab, it says to log in. That's where it went
Did you do
directly.
your
That will
parents'
manage things.
Did you do your parents?
So you need to.
Yeah.
Are you stop streaming?
No, I'm still
Are
streaming.
they gonna
Are we
watch
live
it?
right now?
Yeah. No, you're
All right.
Yeah,
hello.
we're live. Hey, everybody. Well, you can see we are getting it together and pretty much getting the show on the road.
Yeah,
I just want to make sure that we confirm that
we're all live.
we are. Are we? Let me
I'm
check
not
the
sure.
YouTube. We are checking YouTube.
We are checking YouTube, checking 1, 2, 3.
And then look.
Do you guys still have sound?
Yes, I have sound. Can you speak real quick?
Test.
Yep, you're good.
Yes, you all sound great. So yeah, do you want to just like introduce?
Yeah.
Are we ready to roll?
Yeah, and you can do that, and I'll just like do the technical stuff over here.
Okay. Do
Just
you
don't
want
even
to
mind
also
me.
talk to you about yourself too?
Yes, I will.
Yeah, okay.
I will.
Cool. I guess I'll start. Yeah.
Okay, let's start.
Okay. Hey everyone. Thank you for joining us. If you haven't met us, I guess we'll go around introducing ourselves. I'm going to start off with myself. So my name's Elizabeth. I also go by Ellie. You'll see me very active on our social media platforms on Instagram 180.shift and TikTok 180shift. And we're just here. Luckily, I'm able to do this, and I'm 17 years old. So just so you know. Do you want to go, Tara?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. So yes, I am. Whoops. Let's do that. Okay. I'm Tara. If you didn't tell, this is my first podcast. So, no, I'm just kidding. Yeah, I'm Tara. I'm 22. I'm a mother. I became a mother at 18. And resources helped me so tremendously. When I was first having my daughter, and I just gotta say it like this, I'm just so glad I did not listen to Planned Parenthood. I did not listen to their advice. I did not listen to their counseling, and it was the greatest thing that happened to me. So I am here today because I felt called to speak out, not only against Planned Parenthood, but also just I want to spread the knowledge of organizations like the one that helped me so much, because one thing that I know is that I didn't know about it. Somebody had to give me a phone number, so I want to be that person who gives that young woman a phone number, or the struggling person who feels like they need to get an abortion. So that's why I'm here, and I'm sure you'll hear more about my story later. But yeah, so all right, Ellie, what do you think?
Yeah. Who do you want to go?
Hello, my name is Daniel. I am 16 years old, and I am a first-generation immigrant. My family came over here from the former Soviet Union, and now Russia. And now, as we've come here, I've noticed a ton of issues. A lot of the same mistakes that us Eastern Europeans made back in the early 1900s are being repeated. And I joined this organization because I feel I've been called to speak out, to share the experience of my people, so that we do not make the same mistake.
That's great. Okay, well, do you want? Yeah, we can go ahead and introduce our guest now. Hello, Jennifer.
Hello there. Hi, everybody. My name's Jennifer Kennedy, and I'm not going to announce my age, unlike everyone much younger here. I'm an attorney, and one of my big focuses in life is health freedom. It always has been, since in California we lost a lot of health freedom when we lost our personal beliefs exemption to vaccination. Okay, my mic keeps going in and out. And my focus right now in litigation is fighting against the COVID vaccine mandates in our schools, specifically for our K-12 schools and also for our college kids. So my focus is law and legislation, and helping translate both of those to anybody who needs to understand what's going on.
That's wonderful.
So happy to be here.
Yes, thank you so much for being on here.
Yeah, thank you so much, because this is you are helping us launch this. And,
Oh, my
you know,
pleasure. This is fantastic.
yeah, and this is I don't know, is this a new experience for
Yeah,
you, Ellie?
definitely a new experience. I mean, I've been on the radio, but this is the first time that I'm doing a podcast type. How about you?
For me, it's the very first time I've been live over the internet.
Wow.
Oh.
So you're joining us. Everybody's with us. This is awesome on
a lot
our
of
journey
firsts.
here. Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of first here, so.
Yeah.
So Ellie, why don't you start and tell us more about 180 Shift?
Yeah. So 180 Shift, we just started, just brand new in January, so very brand new. 180 Shift, we made it with some people from the Los Angeles Hispanic Republican Club. Now, luckily, they saw that there was a big, gap in where it needed to be filled when it came to reaching out to the younger generation, Generation Z, and right now that's roughly around 25 to 12, depending. Some people, are a little tricky about that, but that's where it's at right now. And we're definitely focusing on those ages that can pre-register to vote right now, so that's 16, and then all the way up to the mid-20s. But our goal is definitely to reach out to our generation and show them that there's not only one side of the political aisle, but there's a second one, which you don't hear about that because all media is filled with just one side of the story. And I see that so much in so many of my friends, so that's definitely a reason why I'm here today. So our goal is to definitely have that conversation and to initiate it.
Yeah. I mean, that was our mission statement. I remember, the LA Hispanic Republican Club sat us down and we're like, okay, if you want to do this, you got to come up with a logo, a name, and a mission statement before you leave today. And then so we're trying all these brainstorming ideas, talking about, okay, what are our key issues here? And, for me, it's abortion. I mean, because I'm a former, very firm liberal. I was such a liberal. So I am not as familiar as Ellie is on a lot of conservative issues, but I am very firm on abortion, and I lived the hypothetical argument that I used to speak on. So I'm just trying to share perspective here with people my age and trying to spread the knowledge that starting a family young is actually can be the best thing that happened to you, But one thing I wanted to say when it comes to the mission statement is that our mission statement is on a mission to initiate a greater conversation amongst younger generations. You didn't specify if it's like early millennials or Gen Z or whatever the new one is. But just those people specifically, there's been this disconnect and huge social media spike. And so one of the first things that we did was start just posting stuff on social media, trying to initiate this conversation. And I was so happy because even right now I'm getting notification after notification from the stuff that we have posted. And we have successfully, I feel like, started that conversation, especially, the stuff that people are saying on our posts on abortion or like climate change. I mean, it's fascinating. It's like, oh yeah, I've heard most of these opinions before, but some of them, they're bringing new perspectives, and it's just something to think about. So I really do feel like we are, completing our mission statement, and so it's just cool to have this new adventure of, actually talking it out, and it feels like step 2, and so I mean,
This is fantastic. I think you guys really are filling a gap that's missing, certainly in California.
Yes.
Yeah.
With our younger generation who might not be engaged and might not have really the exposure to other points of view that are desperately needed,
Yeah.
certainly in this state.
Yeah,
That's very true. Yeah.
yeah.
Yes, I'd like to add on to that one point of view that even if no matter which side of the political aisle you're on, we can all agree that certain states in our perception have a different point of view. For conservatives, California, it seems like there's only one point of view. Everybody's just taking a liberal agenda. For, say, somebody on the liberal side in, say, Texas or some other southern state, it may look like they're only getting that those conservative values, that conservative conditioning, and that they are only receiving one side of the story. What we're doing here is we're trying to bring those two together. Because when both sides can come together and realize that they're not so different, that they have commonalities, there are things that the other side sees that they don't, that they see that the other side doesn't, it helps initiate a greater conversation and also fix many of the issues that we are stuck in deadlock today.
Oh. So I'm curious, Jennifer, like, what do you think is like the leading political voice in the younger movement? Like, what are like the top 3 issues that you notice young people talking about? Like, I'm talking like under 25 or something like that.
Well, actually, I would throw that to Ellie and Daniel because it's hard for me to know what is most important in the younger generation. Because of course I'm focused on legislation and parents' rights, and so a lot of our Gen Z, they're not no parents yet. Tara, however, you are, which is awesome. I can't wait to talk about that topic. I have an interesting discussion even on Twitter about some abortion comments and interesting responses by people that I always find are I don't want to. They're interesting, right? It's great to start the conversation. You know what? I would venture to say, though, that kids and the Gen Z in this state and in this nation, I have to wonder, what do they think about the future? Is there a future for their jobs and careers? Is there a future for building a family, buying a house? Is there a future ahead for a culture in which we're not constantly pitted against each other, or people aren't painted in a corner with their opinions? I would hope that that's what Gen Z is wondering about and wanting to do something about.
You know, what's very sad is I think that not a lot of people are, and I think that there's a lot of emphasis on the world is going to end. I think that's a really big one. So climate change is probably a really big issue.
Yeah.
And people are wondering, you know, the world's going to end, and people are depressed about this. So not so much about what's going to happen about the housing market right now, and more focusing about the world. And I think that's because a lot of people that are currently controlling media and things like that are putting that in, like, for example, I know you were something about Disney, what was it, Mickey Mouse or something like that, I don't know.
Oh, Mickey Mouse. Oh, yeah. No, yeah. I actually posted that on TikTok. It was that, you know, it's funny because my sister-in-law, she told me that the minute I became a mom, I wasn't cool anymore. It didn't matter that I was young. And I think it's true because I literally, like, I'm just...
My kids tell me that.
But anyway, it's funny because I was showing, you know, my daughter, she's 3 years old and she loves to watch Disney Channel. And I let her because I used to love to watch Disney Channel not even that long ago, you know, like 9 years old. So, and yeah, I know that it's becoming corrupt and people warn me about it all the time. But I go, you know, but I don't want to be, I just remember, like, when I was a kid, I remember my peers who weren't allowed to watch SpongeBob. And I just remember that. And it was like, oh, I could tell that kid wasn't allowed to watch SpongeBob. And it's just like, I just want my daughter to, like, kind of have the upbringing I did, which was like, I'm not going to hide you from this stuff. I'm just going to talk to you about it. Because one day they're going to find it out anyway, and it might be their, like, relief, or, you know, they might go, oh, I'm trans, oh, I'm gay, or whatever, and then I want to be like, well, I'm going to share my perspective, I'm going to share what the Bible says, you know, but I know that at the end of the day, I can't control you. But anyway, it's just funny because on Mickey Mouse, they had a whole episode about climate crisis, and it's Mickey Mouse Funhouse. I don't know if I'm supposed to say it. It's like the new one. And yeah, they were like, what's an environmentalist? What's an environmentalist? And
Oh my God.
and then they're like, I want to be an environmentalist. You know, what's that? Oh, well, we gotta save the oceans. And so yeah, I made a little post about it. It was like, how do you deal with this? You turn the TV off. You know?
Right. Because there's an agenda. It seems like there's an agenda filtering through almost everything, even like cartoons.
It's crazy, yeah.
I know.
But also talking about the issue about the 3 top issues, well, it was actually a study done of 2022 exiting polls that showed Gen Z, 61% showed that Gen Z voted Democrat, and the top issues was gun violence, abortion, and climate change. So that also supports the climate change as being one of the top issues.
Do you think it's one of the top issues for Gen Z because it is fed so much through the public? We hear about climate change constantly, and of course, it used to be called, back in my day, used to be called global warming, right? And then they had to rebrand it because it was a little too cold in certain spots for it to be global warming anymore. And now it's climate change. What I wonder is, I just think you guys Gen Z is beaten over the heads with doom and gloom scenarios. The ice caps are melting, tsunamis are coming, the seas are rising, etc. We might die tomorrow, and then, oh my God, layer COVID on top of that. And your generation has been shoveled onto with a lot of bad news, and I feel bad for that. I feel, but that you guys have a lot to get through to get to positivity and hope. And I think this kind of conversation is what can do it.
Yeah, and I definitely hope so that we do that all through God's grace, you know.
Yeah.
But
Well, one thing I'd like to add is that this situation that Generation Z finds themselves in is remarkably similar to the situation in the 50s, 60s, and 70s, with the world-ending threat from nuclear weapons.
That's right.
And two opposing sides that were at each other's throats. Also, the McCarthyism, I say witch hunt.
Yeah.
People going
The
after
communism.
everybody. People going after their neighbors, accusing them of being communists. And now I feel like we have something similar, though. Like back in the 50s, there was a problem with communism in the United States, but people blew it up so much that it lost all its meaning. Such as today with the same topics as being racist or homophobic. I feel like we are inflating those words. We are making them lose meaning. And that is something really dangerous we should avoid. And we should probably look to what we did back in the mid-1900s to get past this harshness, because we all glorify the American dream, the nuclear family. How did that happen? And how can we replicate or match that sort of recovery?
I think only a crisis will speak, you know what I mean? I mean, it's sad to say that, but if you look at it in my grandma's generation, she actually had kids around the same time that I had kids. But they were dealing with the war, you know? So
World War II.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, my grandma was born in 1927 and her husband was 9 or 10 years older than her. So he just had got out of the war and then he was dealing with this and then he was like, oh yeah, I need to start a family. And that's kind of what everybody was saying. So that's how we, and then going into the 50s, it was you had the 50s housewives and you had the jobs and the social security that was still enough to live on, I'm hearing nowadays that when you retire, you're just going to be fed canned food if you made under
That's because Social Security's got to be all run out by then, and by the time you retire, there won't be any left. That's more of the doom and gloom. Sorry.
Yeah, more of the doom and gloom.
Mm-hmm. You know what I would say, though, right now, I would argue that we are in a crisis. We are in a crisis over the existence of the nuclear family. We're in a crisis over the existence of right and wrong, good and bad. Do we have morals? Do we have bright line standards? And another one is there a God, right? We have a lot of attack on God and on religion. And when you successfully remove God from a society, or you convince a generation that there is no God, how are you going to convince that generation that they have God-given rights that are to be protected at all costs and that are not granted by government but are granted by God and by virtue of our humanity? When you take that away, you have a captive, weak population. So I think we are in kind of a crisis right now.
Yeah, we are, and definitely because a third of Gen Z does not has no religious affiliation at all. So we're definitely seeing that in our generation, and there may be plenty of reasons why our generation is like this right now. I mean, one of them could be the fact that a lot of millennials also didn't even consider or want to pass on religion to their young children. And now we're seeing this big crisis right now.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. We've had, the adults in the crowd, the older people will tell you we've had such different shifts in how kids are raised generation to generation. And, the older generations from the Depression and the World War II era, the greatest generation, they were all about sacrifice and planning for the future. And then you had their children, the silent generation that grew up with that type of sacrifice and passed it on to their kids. But I would say when you get beyond into these later generations where life got easier and more affluent, it became easier for kids to be given maybe way too much too early. And you have a generation of people that might be feeling entitled. Like, what about in Gen Z? What's the attitude towards working and getting a job? Do you have the sense of what it's like out there?
I'm trying to think, because there's a lot of people who do not like jobs. They just want things handed to them. And that's the attitude that I see a lot. I mean, I go on like Instagram or just social media in general, and I just feel like a lot of people they feel so wronged, and they feel like things should be handed to them, and they're very entitled to a lot of things. And that's what we're looking at in my generation.
I also have noticed, I think it varies, because I've hung out with like, typical rich kids who are like, I haven't quite decided what I want to do yet, and it's like they're 26. It's just like, well, you're kind of running out of time.
I'm still on my parents' insurance,
yeah,
and
exactly. Just no real urge to like, try and make a difference. It's like there's no in the Greatest Generation they said that there was a like a mentality of like I need to be a hero, or like a complex, and that's just lacking in a lot of us. But anyway, I also notice in families that struggle more, the kids they'll like hustle more, and then they'll have more dreams of like something they want to do, and they're harder workers. But there is still like a lot of the times I notice just that mentality of like the world owes me something, the system is to blame for this, like I'm poor because X, Y, or Z, like not so much an attitude of, yes, I'm poor, what can I do to like better my situation today? You know what I mean? Like the thought of like saving up money or like being patient and just working a job is like out of the question, so
it's a foreign concept, I think, to some of the younger generation.
It encourages actually a lot of the you see a lot of the younger generations, they're advocating a lot more anti-capitalism and socialism. Now, capitalism, of course, has its flaws like any other system. Let's not make two ways about it. But now that this sort of mentality, like you mentioned, Tara, this sort of mentality that you are owed something inherently and that you're not supposed to work for what you have, that's sort of seeped into, because capitalism is all about working for yourself. You're entitled to the sweat of your brow, per se. And socialism, however, let me back up a little bit. So capitalism is you work for what you have, and that's the general concept. And now that these people have this mentality of, hey, I am owed something by the world, I shouldn't have to work for everything, I shouldn't have to work to survive, they turn to socialism, which promises a place where everybody gets paid equally, no matter what job you do. Everybody's equal. There is no, in theory, there's no class disparity. Everybody does the same thing. They can do whatever they want, and I feel like that's a large reason why socialism is getting a lot more steam.
Because it seems attractive to them. It seems like what they're already thinking about. But in that system, where is the incentive to be great? Where is the incentive to excel in your field, or the incentive to invent something and take a risk, or start a business and take a risk? And that's the beauty of our country, right? Our generation needs to realize that's what we are famous for, is equality of opportunity, not equality of result.
Right.
And in this country alone, you can come to this country like Daniel's family. You can come to this country maybe with nothing, maybe not speaking the language, and you can still make yourself a fantastic life.
Right, and it's the beautiful thing about it, too.
Yeah.
Just to give an example, my family came from the Russian Federation, and they came to the United States with a total of $300 and nothing else. Nothing else but the clothes on their back. They didn't speak a word of English.
That's amazing. And Daniel, how old were you at that time?
I was not born yet.
Oh, okay. All right. Well, still.
My mother was actually pregnant, and my father and mother, they worked exceptionally hard in those early years. They worked so hard. My older sister was born, and eventually my mother got to practice her dream of becoming an attorney. My dad got to be president of a taxi company.
This is
And now-
amazing.
Yeah.
And now I'd say we are very well off, especially compared to what my grandparents, great grandparents, and all my other ancestors had to go through.
Wow, God is good. You know,
Yeah.
that's an amazing story.
That
And
is.
the story of immigrants who work so hard. My mom was a teacher of English as a second language. So I've had a lot of experience over the years with foreigners who've come to this country, and they've come specifically for a better life. And what I have seen these people, the hard work they've done while learning the language and trying to hold a job and get their family over here or keep their family going, it's really inspiring. And this is the place to do it. Can you imagine yourself, any of us, going to a foreign country, not speaking the language, and then being able to learn it and build a business?
It's
I-
honestly amazing.
I don't know if I could do it.
Yeah, we should rename this podcast "What's Your Excuse?"
Exactly. So there are lots of things facing Gen Z. We could talk and talk for ages. One of the things I think Gen Z needs to think about going forward, and it might be hard, the notion of having a family. That's what we're here for. We're here to create the next generation. It's great that you guys in the next generation are coming up, and because it gives us hope that we can leave it in good hands.
Right. And you know what, to be honest, when I was younger, I was definitely fled that idea of not having a family at all. And I'll be very honest, calling my younger self out, I did not want to have a family at all. I was like, I want to stay home with my mom, and I just did not want to
Really?
do that. And you know what? By God's grace, He has changed my mind, and He showed me that that's a very worldly point of view to have. And you know what? It's crazy. how
Was
much
it?
our
What did
minds
it come
change.
from? Because back in the 70s, you heard that they were sold the bill of goods about a depopulation, like don't have too many kids. We have too many people on the planet. And where do you suppose the idea came to you about not having children?
You know what? I'm not quite sure. I see a lot of people talking about this myself, like people that I know and I talk to, even people like my age, still now, that they talk about how, you know what, I don't really want to do that to my body. I don't want to do that. That's like, I don't want to have children. I just want to maybe have one child. Maybe not have any at all. And I feel like it comes from a very selfish place about only caring about yourself.
Interesting.
And I think that that's been fed. Also, talking back to the being a little bit selfish and being entitled to things, I think that it could also kind of correlate maybe.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for me, I also didn't want to have kids. The thought of getting married sounded like, why would you do that with your life? And I remember for me, it was like literally like children are a burden. They
Yeah,
get in the
that's
way
the
of your
thing.
hopes and dreams. And it's just like, as I've gotten older, I've learned like what hopes and dreams, like money that you want to like spend on your kids, like what? It doesn't make any sense. Also, I just want to say really quickly, we have 9 viewers right now, and we're all limited to our own perspective. So if you have anything to say on this, please like comment it, whatever it is, because we love to hear other perspectives and other just parts of this conversation. So
Yeah,
thank you
and
so much for tuning
Thanks
in.
for
too.
joining.
Yes,
Yeah.
thank you for your patience on the first podcast.
Yeah.
But anyway, yeah, just a quick segue.
Mm-hmm.
It's great, yeah.
I'd like to add, back to the story about my parents, if you want to know why they came over here, it wasn't for a better life for themselves. They came over here for a better life for me and my sisters. My dad tells me this practically every day. Everything they do, it's not for themselves. Their only concern is for us, so that we may have a good life. If my family had stayed in Russia, I would have been conscripted into the military. Forced into the military, for those who don't know, for a minimum of 2 years. my sisters wouldn't have a good choice. In the economy over there in the Russian Federation, you would have to bribe, you would have to cheat, you would have to go through all these hoops. You would have to go outside the system. You'd have to navigate through all these dangerous waters just to be marginally successful. And my parents just didn't want us to experience that kind of hardship. So that's why they came over here, for a better life for their children.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
You know, the interesting thing, though, that I would point out, I would say that every generation in the past is proud to say that they've built a better one for their children until now. What you keep hearing now is that kids of today will not have it as easy as their parents did. For the first time in history, and I'm afraid that that may be true because we are looking at just exponential inflation. Look at the state of California. I look around my neighborhood and I think, what young family can buy $1 million house in Mar Vista with a carport? I mean, what young family can afford for a mom to stay home and you can have little kids and have mom look after them while there's one income earner? I don't see that in California. The current setup is that we're worried that we're not leaving as good a time or as good a circumstances for our kids, and that's got to turn around.
Yeah, that's so true.
You know what's really scary too is I was interviewing some people at the Chatsworth Blockfest over the weekend, and I was interviewing some people, and I was asking this one young man. I asked him, "So, what do you think the state of this country is right now?" He says, I think we're doing pretty good. You know, I'm not very knowledgeable on it, but I think we're doing really good right now." And I was like, "Really? We are?" He's like, "Yeah, we are." And I was like, that's in my mind. I was like, this is scary because this person's roughly around my age, has no idea about anything that's happening.
Not paying attention. Yeah.
Speaking of not paying attention, I just noticed that we did get some comments, so I'm going to say them right now.
great.
All right. So Booma Wolf said, "I think a lot of the culture/media being so feminist, putting men down, was a deliberate attack on the family unit." Sorry.
Oh yeah, I mean, my God, you can't really in fact, all the TV shows that make men look like bumbling idiots, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Like
there's been
Frozen?
or also just your straight white male boys in school. What do they get to do, right? Where are their awards and their trophies and their special clubs and their empowerment and whatever? It's hard to be a boy in school right now because all the girls are getting all the attention, I would say.
Yeah.
It's true.
Not to mention the grooming. The grooming is real, and I know that because I saw them just do
You
it.
mean the gender grooming, the
Gender grooming
trans
and,
ideology?
and the sexual identity grooming. It's serious. I mean, they tried to do it to me. They tried to do it, to my brother, and they got pretty far with my brother. So it's just like, they go, "Oh, you're different. You're weird. So you must be," and then they fit you into some sort of category.
But Tara, when you say they said this, who do you mean? I mean, do you mean the curriculum, or was it teachers or counselors,
guess
or
you're
was
right,
it those
yeah.
people, those third parties they bring in to have those assemblies?
The assemblies, yes, I do
Yeah.
remember the assemblies of do not bully. We gotta make sure that we're inclusive to everybody. I think for me it was people in older grades. For me it was like the 12th graders when I was in high school, and I was in like 9th grade. They knew that I was like an outcast, and so they would hang out with me, and then but for everyone it's different. I couldn't say who it was for my brother, other people that I know who dealt with that. But Hoey, we got some more comments. Do you guys want to say more on that?
You know what? You want to talk about one of those bills that kind
Yes, I
of
definitely
touches on?
do.
Let's do that.
Yeah.
We can talk about 665, or how about AB 1314 that just that is the parental secrecy, and I want to hear from our viewers, right? So here's the deal. And Tara is hitting on this right now, right? In schools right now, we know that there is a gender agenda. There's a gender ideology that is being pushed through our schools. And you see it in LA Unified. And they have a program called LAUSD, Queer All Year. And it's not just a month anymore, it's the entire year is focused on this kind of circulating curriculum about LGBT rights, LGBT everything. Okay. So it's constantly being piped into the kids' heads. And what we're also hearing is this kind of secret grooming of kids on campus to be trans. And you hear and see about tons of kids these days are identifying as trans on campus. They are socially transitioning. They are presenting as the opposite sex with clothing, name, pronouns, call it what you will. And in the schools, in California for sure, and across the nation, schools are keeping this secret from parents. Okay? And this is not about outing a kid who's gay, right? This is not about outing a child who has come out to pretty much everyone on campus, but about being gay and their parents don't know. No, this is about what the child is doing on campus, presenting as the opposite sex. And teachers, classmates, the principal, admins, counselors, everybody knows on campus, but they're keeping it secret from the parents. So I want to know from our listeners or from our viewers what your thought is about that, about this notion about this intentional secrecy, but then to tell you that we just had a law presented, a proposed law, a bill, AB 1314. And it was supposed to put into our education code the requirement that if a school witnesses this behavior, if a school sees a child presenting as the opposite sex, identifying as trans, this is a big deal. It could indicate all kinds of things with the child, such as depression or underlying issues, or even if it's gender confusion. And therefore, we should tell the parents. But you know what happened to that bill? They wouldn't even put it into the legislature for an up or down vote, even in a committee. They killed it. They held it in committee, which is the legislative equivalent of, suffocating it while it sleeps. And they didn't even get it a vote. And the this bill, the opposition to the bill was so so vigorous because they were calling it homophobic. They were calling it hate. And
It's crazy. All you have to do these days is just put a label on it, and then you get rid of it.
and that's what they did. And people are scared of that extremely strong LGBT lobby. But this was not about hate. This is about parents need to know what's going on with their kids.
Exactly.
And even if their kid is somehow not doing that at home, if they're doing it all day at school, 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, that's more like a psychological or psychosocial intervention on that child that's being done without the parent's knowledge. So I'm wondering what people think about that.
I just want to say something really quickly on that, and then I'm gonna read some comments. I think it circles back around to who is your God, and right now it seems like so gross, but like what happens in the bedroom is your God, that seems like they are idolizing someone finding themselves or their sexuality or their gender identity or whatever it is. They are putting that above someone's relationship with their parents, It's because it's becoming their God,
It's like a religion, actually.
Yeah.
It is like a religion. And the weird thing is this conflation, because on the one hand, they'll tell you where gender isn't related to sexuality, they will say. Gender has nothing to do with that. And yet, well, if it doesn't, then what does it relate to? Why are we hiding it then and not telling parents about it?
For real.
I don't know. It's inconsistent.
Not only is it putting the person's perception of themselves above their relationship with their parents, it's also putting their perception over their own health, because
exactly.
no matter what your opinion is on LGBTQ, whether it's natural, whether it's unnatural, whether it's a mental health issue or it's just human nature, signs that a person is identifying as the opposite gender or sex, it's some of the time it's also an indicator of underlying health issues.
Exactly.
Depression, anxiety, different
even
mental
diagnoses
disorders.
like ADHD and autism. They're finding that kids with those on the spectrum are a little more susceptible to going with a trans identity. And if those things are going on, those are present for kids, then their parents need to know. And if they're, there's no data out there on families kicking kids out of their home. There really is no data that the pro, I would say, secrecy camp wants to say that every child is at risk of being ostracized by his or her family, but there's just no data that supports that. Parents love their children and want to help their children. Yes, 1 or 2 might be bad apples, but that's 1 or 2, a tiny, tiny minority. And we cannot legislate because of that tiny minority, right?
Yeah. Let me read some comments here because they're starting. Okay, so I have. So Booma Wolf says, everyone watching, make sure you smash that like button so other people find the stream. Thank you. Is that that sounds like Tim Pool, right? Is that
Exactly.
Tim Pool?
Like and subscribe, smash the button.
Yeah. Okay, so we have they're trying to get rid of tomboys too. Yeah, that's true.
That's
and
a
I was a
thing.
total tomboy.
Mhm.
Oh my goodness.
It's like save the tomboys, right?
Save the
Yeah.
tomboy.
They're wanting
Mhm,
to
we
do-
hear that.
And we have another one that says, Catherine Santana says, women should reconsider the long list of must-haves before getting married. Choose someone you can build a life with. Yeah, I mean, I see that. I see my friends just, I mean, I can't even consider a lot of them my friends anymore, but just casually hooking up with people. And it's like, oh, I didn't love that person at all. And I'm like, okay, then that's gross, like, you shouldn't do that. But who am I to? Okay, whatever. Okay, and then love how biblical you all seem. Yes. Like I said before, God is my biggest inspiration on all of this
Yes,
stuff.
and you know what? If all people get away from this is changing their mind on who God is and actually trusting and believing in Him, then that's gonna make everything worthwhile.
Absolutely.
And that right there is a 180 shift.
Yes.
Yes.
Right?
Yes, 180. Shout out. We have a comment that says, interesting. Yes, I agree. Yo, double-digit viewers. Let's go. Hey, we got 11 views. Even though we
Awesome.
started late. So we appreciate all of you. Matthew says, where do HIPAA laws of
Oh,
confidentiality
okay.
specifically with mental health, psychotherapy have its limits between a client and their clinician and confidentiality?
Okay, well, we know, so we're talking about HIPAA laws, and that is HIPAA. Lots of times people misspell it with the double P.
Did I?
No. Literally everyone does it. I have a funny little, anyway. And that is, the interesting thing about it is it's the Health Insurance Portability and Accountability Act, whatever. It means it layered on new privacy rights for, your medical providers cannot release your private medical information without your consent. It's just another layer of like, you can't get records. So that's going to apply to medical providers. Now, I'm not sure if I understand where the question is going with that. Are you wondering about whether that affects a school's ability to talk about a child's behavior? Because I contend it does not.
I think the question is asking, where do HIPAA laws have limits between a client and the confidentiality? So where, I think that question is, where's the line? Where's the line? And my understanding is like suicide, right? Like that's kind of
Danger to self or others.
Yeah.
I would say right there. Yes, you hear that all the time in the counseling space, where they're going to hold everything confidential unless you threaten you make a credible threat against yourself or someone else.
Yeah.
And that's when they have to break that confidentiality and go to the appropriate authorities. That's what a mandated reporter needs to do. Like in a school context, when a child comes to you with evidence of abuse or neglect, etc., or suicidal ideation, that you break confidentiality and you have to go you're mandated to report that to the authorities.
Yeah, and I know as far as medication goes, I know this from personal experience. Like, if it doesn't matter, like even if you're like 16 years old, they will put you on birth control pill, or I'm assuming now the trans medication too, like hormone stoppers too. And they don't even, they're like, yeah, it's your decision, kid. At least in California, that's how.
Well,
that's how they handle
I
it.
keep hearing about the kids who go in for a single appointment at the gender clinic, and they come out with a prescription for puberty blockers. They come out with a prescription for surgery. I mean, even after just one appointment. This is
I just thought of
awful.
something.
Yes, Tara.
Okay. There was this person on social media, and they were bragging about, it was a man to woman.
Okay.
No, I'm
Transition?
sorry. Yes, no, I'm sorry.
Okay.
It was a woman to man. And do I have that right? Yes. And then it said, yes, I did, because it said, it was this person saying, bragging online about how they had a hysterectomy approved by their insurance because it was it was a gender identity problem, and they were bragging about it because it's like a thing that a lot of women, when they have problems with their uterus or whatever, it's like harder for them to get it approved by their insurance and stuff. But this trans, it like went right through. And everybody on the comments were like, "Why are you flexing about this? Why are you bragging about this? What's your game here? Like this is." You're like accidentally pointing out a flaw in the system, you know?
Mm-hmm. That all you have to say are the magic words of gender affirming care.
Yeah.
And
And
that's sad. That's a sad commentary right there on the buzzwords you can use to get certain things that, and I would quickly say that aren't going to turn out very well for you is the problem.
Yeah. You know, I actually had a dialogue with someone on, I think it was TikTok. I had posted this thing that was like, oh, like, you know, I scheduled an abortion. I didn't go to the appointment. Best decision I ever made, or something like that. And then I was helped by pro-life organizations. And then somebody said, oh, okay, you know, that's nice and all, but you know, I live in Texas and I'm a nurse, and basically, like, because Texas just banned abortion, I am watching my boss, the doctor, turn women away if they have ectopic pregnancies, or you know, if it's like the you know, an unviable pregnancy. And I went and I did the research, and it's like I responded to her based on, you know, I went and read some stuff about the laws and about everything, and I responded with, I think that's politicized. Like, that's, you know, that's a political move that the doctor is doing. It's kind of like
it's absolutely not. I mean, no doctor should be doing that, and that's not what the abortion statutes say that they should do. Of course, you're going to treat a woman with an ectopic pregnancy or some other. Of course, you're going to treat a woman who has, you know, it's called an incomplete miscarriage, right?
Yeah.
You're going to treat and provide care. I think that is fear mongering. I call BS on that.
Yeah, me too, because and then I also pointed out, you know, you're saying that they're afraid of getting sued, right? For doing an abortion unlawfully. But then it's like, but that same doctor could be sued if the patient dies of an ectopic pregnancy. So how is that not politicized? You know, like they're probably more like waiting the last moment until it becomes fatal, or, you know, I don't know. But then they're saying, like, they're dramatizing it, like, oh yeah, that's because, you know, women's rights just got taken away here in Texas. Like, yeah, I guess you should have voted differently. I don't know. You know, they're trying to dramatize the situation, even though the decision would probably at the end be, we treat on an emergency basis.
That's right, and we treat for the condition. But elective abortion itself may in fact be prohibited, but not any of that other care. So yeah.
So
do you think abortion is a big issue for Gen Z? Do you think
yes,
it is?
Because we are getting abortions left and right.
Mm-hmm.
Literally, I know so many women my age who have at least had a few abortions at this point.
I got to ask you, do you know whether that was with parental knowledge? It makes me so sad, actually, to think of young women going to that clinic on their own, not being supported. Number one, having to make that decision, feeling they have to make that decision, and also going alone.
I can tell you my experience. I can tell you my experience really quickly. Because we do have about 3 minutes, but we might go over time. So any finishing thoughts, you could probably gather those now. But anyway, so my experience was, I was 18. I had just turned 18. I was 18 for like a week, and then I found out that I was 8 weeks pregnant. And then, I was not a good kid. I was a partier. I kind of got kicked out of high school and for drugs, and I was actually taking drugs when I found out I was pregnant. Anyway. You know, what do you do when you find out you're pregnant? Yeah, no, I didn't tell my parents. I told my boyfriend, and he went like, oh, what the, and then I called Planned Parenthood, and they were like, you did the right thing by reaching out to us. You know, like very zen and very much like, okay, so what do you want to do? You know? And then I said, well, I don't want to have this baby. You know, I don't even know what I want to do with my life. You know, just, I don't want my freedom to be lost, you know, and whatnot. And then, they say, yeah, how old are you? And then I go, well, I just turned 18. And then they're like, okay, that's good to know. and then they're like, okay, is it what's your parents like? What's your family's like income? Oh, not that great back then. And then they're like, oh, that's a good thing to take into account.
Did they want to know if you were going to be able to pay for it or where they were going to bill
No,
it?
well, abortions are free in California.
Oh, did you hear that?
No, they were, they're absolutely 100% free. No, they were asking, I think they were fear-mongering me when I look back, because they didn't even know that I was like a hardcore liberal. Mm-hmm. They just knew I was a naive girl. Mm-hmm. So they started just fear-mongering me off the bat. And, they didn't come out and say, well, we think you should get an abortion. But they, like, did everything else. Like, they were like, what's your education? Oh, yeah.
Do you have a job, miss?
Yeah, do you have a job? Oh, no, I don't. I don't know what I'm
sustain
doing.
Yourself.
Are you ready to be a parent? That was one. I was like, of course not. Like, what are you talking about? Anyway, so that's what they did to me. And then so they said, okay, well, you know what? We're going to help you out. We're going to schedule this abortion. Well, that was my ring. We're going to schedule this abortion right now over the phone. And I was like, sounds great. You know what? You guys are just what I needed, And then so we scheduled the abortion. It's like in a week, okay? So it's gonna happen in a week, and it's like, all right, here we go. And then I hang up the phone, and I was taking classes back then at a community college, and then I just went back inside, and that was that, And then my boyfriend, who ended up, now he's my husband, and it was so funny because a few days later, I kind of knew, my parents are very smart, so I kind of knew that the secret was going to come out eventually. And I was just like, let's just get it over with now, blah, 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 And then, so I said to my husband, now my husband, I said to him, okay, you got to go tell my dad about all this, okay? And he did.
You've got to tell my dad. Yeah. I see what you did there.
Oh my goodness, that's a cringe moment. Anyway, and he did, and that's why I married him.
I was gonna say, wow, that's a spine right there.
Yeah, he did, and but yeah, it all came out, and it was interesting. I was questioning whether or not I should say this, but I'm deciding to, because this is my story, and like I said, I wouldn't be who I am today without any of these details. But when my dad found out, he was like, oh, okay, well, he was real cool about it. And he just went, okay, well, I am here to help you raise that baby. And it was like, well, Dad, I already scheduled the abortion appointment, and then it was like both him and my now mother-in-law were like, oh, like, if you get that abortion, like, my dad was like, I'm disowning you. Like, it was intense. And, wow. And you know what my response was? Little junky 18-year-old Tara was like, I don't care. Mm-hmm. So pretty terrible. But, I'll share more of that story later. But, throughout the pregnancy, that is when I became a born-again Christian. I think I was about 8 months pregnant or something like that. But it was.
This is definitely a to be continued.
Yes.
And you guys, you listen, you watchers, right? You're coming back for this, because there's a lot more to be revealed. Yeah. What a great opening show this has been.
Yes. Do you
Yes.
have any cases that you are currently following that we should be aware of?
You know what? Actually, another really important bill that is really, really important for Gen Z. You got to listen to this one. Is it's in the legislature right now, and it's about the HPV shot. Okay, It's called AB 659. That's Assembly Bill 659. And here's the thing: that bill came out. You remember the old? I don't know if you all know, but the song about how a bill becomes a law. But anyway, it came out, and the Assemblywoman who wrote it wanted to force all 8th graders to get the HPV shot in order to go to school. Listen, we don't have that mandate in the state of California, thank God. But she wanted to put it on the schedule, right? So grassroots, we pushed back, and so she changed her bill. She amended it. Only she took it away from the 8th graders and she mandated it for the college kids. And by kids, I mean people 26 and younger. Those sound like adults to me. Yeah. So she put it in the college level, and we said, no, that's not what we meant. Take out the mandate. And she did. The mandate is no longer in that bill. But guess what is? Language that's going to force colleges and schools to send letters to parents that tell them, or to people, college students, that tell them that it's California, the state's expectation that you get that HPV shot before high school or before college. It's expected. What is that language? The state of California is expecting you to do something. Anyway, we're fighting back on that language and saying, take that out also. Why don't you use the word recommended, comma, and not required? So what I need everybody out there to know is, number one, that shot's not required for anything in the state of California. Number two, I recommend, and this is just me talking, that shot has so many problems and it has caused injury and death worldwide. I call it death in a syringe. I recommend you not get it and avoid it at all costs. And don't let yourself be bullied into it if you happen to be at the doctor and they say, well, you wouldn't want to get cancer, would you? HPV has 150 different strains, and these shots target a handful of those, and the body can clear HPV on its own. This is what we read. I'm not a medical doctor. Don't take my medical advice. But it is not something that you need to be pressured into getting. So AB 659, we're so glad we beat that mandate, and we're trying to pull that language out because I don't want parents or any other teens or anybody to be misled on that one.
Expectation, that's very misleading.
It is. It's the public policy of the state. And they were so, you know what? That notion right there, that something is the public policy of the state, that should be, there should be hearings about that and evidence presented and rational discussion over that. No, they didn't have any of that. They just wrote it in there, right?
Of course they did.
So we want to stop that one.
Great.
Yeah, I mean, yeah. that's
Only
very good
4
to know.
states in the nation mandate that shot. Only 4. They're stupid and they're dumb, and I don't know why they do that. In fact, we could have a whole discussion on the entire shot schedule in California.
Yes, we
But
should
that's
do
another
that,
time.
'cause
Yeah.
I have some stories on it. So yeah, we should wrap up. We're about 5 minutes over time. I'll just read the final comments. Somebody put a heart. Thank you.
Thank you.
And then someone said, "So you kept the baby." Well, my friend, you know what? You're gonna have to find that out on next week's podcast.
away. Spoiler alert.
Next week, 7 p.m. Hopefully. If not, be patient with us. Work in progress, always improving. And yeah, we hope that everyone tunes in next week. Do you have any final thoughts, Ellie or Jennifer or anyone?
Final thoughts are thank you. Thanks for having me. Maybe see you again. Ellie?
Yes, thank you so much for being on. Thank you for being patient. This is our first time, and I definitely had a great time. So thank you so much for being on here, Jennifer.
Oh, my pleasure.
Daniel?
Thank you, everybody, for tuning in, and we promise it will be better next time. As things
Hey,
go
this
on,
was
it will get smoother.
Yes, absolutely. All right. So I'm going to all right.
That's it.
That's